All right, folks, it is the C3 podcast. It's Tuesday night. It's 10 o'clock. The Panthers have once again lost. They have fallen again. It is a different week, the same voice, the same face, same team, and I'm here with my same best buddy, Joe Riolano. What's up, my man?
Hey, Tony, it's great to be here and have you back on the show. What's up, Panther Nation? We're licking our wounds once again this week.
That's right. You know what? I enjoyed the bye so much that I took a vacation and had a happy turkey day, and now, once again, back to normal. I'd also like to say hello to our guest tonight, Jason Oppel from CarolinaProFootball.com. They do outstanding work over there. You got to check them out. X's and O guys can really bring the Panther talk. How's it going? Thanks for coming on the show.
Great, man. It's great to be among friends again, even though, maybe circumstances are less than ideal. But I suppose the consolation prize was everyone ate a lot of turkey and was in a little bit more of a tolerant mood.
That's true.
It's like the Panthers' dinner for every night of this season has been turkey, and the tryptophan has just been in there. So let's get cracking and jump right into it, fellas. Big day. I titled the show, well, it's not a big day. Who even cares, really? This is the sad part of all of this, is that I titled the show Cason Closed, Evaluating for 2014. Today, Antoine Cason was cut in the midst of just another cruddy week. We go to Minnesota, and really from the first series, it felt like it was over. I mean, I don't know if there was one point in that game where I felt like the Panthers had even gotten off the airplane. And they run the ball essentially 2 times with no gain. 3rd and 8, no conversion, punt the ball into the wind. It doesn't even cross the 50, and boy, it was just downhill from there. Joey, how bad is it? Is it worse in Carolina than that weather was?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's considerably worse in Carolina than the weather. We are, frankly, just not good at anything. And even the best, arguably one of the best players on the team, our punter, Nortman, had a difficult day. Now, not all of it may be his fault necessarily, but that just goes to show you the type of season we're having. When we had those 2 punts blocked and returned for touchdowns, I've been watching football a very long time, the better part of 40-something years, and I don't think I've ever seen a game where 2 punts were blocked and returned for touchdowns in the same game. And that just tells you
I can't remember it.
The kind of team that we have, the way this year's gone.
All right, well, tomorrow is a special day. It's Joey's birthday, and for his birthday, they gave you the one thing you had never seen in football other than a Panthers Super Bowl or a Panthers back-to-back winning season. They also gave you 2 punts for touchdown returns in a special teams debacle. It looked terrible. Jason, you guys do a lot of film work. You do a lot of play, this was a stunt, this, you guys really break down what real football is. From like a classroom level. What the hell is going on the board? Are they not using X's and O's? Are they using like omegas and lambda chi's or something?
I can only imagine what Ron Rivera was saying in those meeting rooms. I'm sure it was Jim Moore Jr. where the football or playoffs or whatever, pick your favorite coaching tirade, and I'm sure he was there. But to me, and from what we've seen week in and week out, is the defense. They're playing well enough for us to win, and you have to understand that it is all a jigsaw puzzle and all kind of fits together. So when the offense isn't playing well, obviously that puts a lot more pressure on your defense. And obviously when you listen to Dave Gettleman, and his philosophy is, hey, big men give you an opportunity to compete. They give you a chance to win. Well, when you don't have that, then the inverse is clear. And I'm speaking specifically about the offensive line. And some of that is talent, and some of that we found is really talent evaluation and sort of self-inflicted things that are going on the offensive line. I mean, if you look at the most successful drives that the Panthers have had this year, that magical fourth quarter that Cam had the week before the bye, if you look at some of the nicer drives that we've had, you notice one thing's in common, and that's they have a certain combination of offensive linemen in there, and it all starts with Chris Scott, in my opinion, of all people.
Wow.
When you have
what a sad day this is.
Well, when you have Chris Scott in there, and when you have Andrew Norwell, who has been awesome, he's just been killing it, and no one's really saying too much about him. He's been a favorite of mine, since the first game he started. But when you see those guys are in, the Panthers do well, and you hear Ron Rivera talk about, well, we have a good offensive line rotation. And then in the same breath, you'll hear him talk about, well, we don't have any consistency in our offensive line. We don't have, we're starting this guy, we're starting that guy. To me, you have the guys on your offensive line right now that can play well enough to give Cam a chance, to give this running game a chance. And I don't know who's responsible for rotating these guys in. I don't know who's responsible for cutting Chris Scott, but to me, far and away, right now, he's our best bet at guard. And if you don't have that up front, you can't evaluate anyone or anything on that offense, to my mind. All these talks about Cam Newton, etc. I mean, he's the same guy who started the season, red hot when he had a decent offensive line. So now all of a sudden he can't play. I don't get that. I don't get that at all.
Jason, you're saying that you like the combination of Norwell and Scott over Silatolu and Turner?
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at Silatolu, he has played, and he has been injured, so I'm gonna, let's factor that in. But he has played extremely poorly. I've seen him get blown off the ball, make mistake after mistake. Try Turner. To me, he just needs to spend a season, an off-season in the NFL conditioning program, because he gets bull rushed a lot. You see him get blown off the ball. He's a rookie. Let's be fair. And he doesn't have, on that right tackle, he doesn't have someone to anchor him. It's the talent is really bad out there. Let's be honest.
I wanted to ask you.
Obviously, you're talking about Chris Scott being the save of this great player.
I'm not saying that he's a great player, but what I'm saying is that he's good enough to give the Panthers a chance on that right-hand side of the line.
When they have a legitimate dudes on both sides of him, you know what I'm saying? That's the way Bell is too. Byron Bell would be that way if he was playing guard. He's like decent, but he's out of position. So I think that, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of hard. I understand what you're saying with Scott. Like, he's played the best out of the worst. But, God, that's a sad day. Joe, you wanted to ask him another question on it because I got something to say about Trey Turner.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you what you thought about Remmers and how his performance was this past week. In my humble opinion, I thought he played fairly well. I won't say he played good or well, but I thought he did a decent job. He had moments anyway.
Well, I haven't had a chance to go back and look at the coach's film of this game just because it became available this evening. But
I see.
I mean, if you just watching the game, and like I said, you can't really watch everyone all at once, but he started the game off pretty shaky in my mind, and then he sort of faded the background for me, which is probably a good thing. But to really kind of give him a good grade, I'd have to really evaluate him. I'd take a look at him, but sure. It's not ever a good sign whenever a guy you're having on that practice squad comes up and he's playing right tackle. That's not good. So
agreed.
And don't get me wrong, I don't think Chris Scott is a savior, but I think he's good enough to keep Cam from getting killed and keep our running backs from getting killed. And if you have that, maybe you can get a little something going. I mean, like I said, that fourth quarter, those last three drives just before the bye, Chris Scott was in there each and every time, and we scored on virtually every possession. So, I don't know why they're rotating these guys in and out. To me, it doesn't make sense when you're crying about consistency. It really, I don't get it.
Right.
All right, so here this is all I want to say about Trey Turner, really, and kind of move on from him, because I think it has less to do with him than the plan behind it. Is that the idea that a kid that's played 1 year in college, maybe 2, he came out as early as you could possibly come out. He was graded as one of those high talents, but the idea, it's not like he was graded. He was projected to be a first-round pick at some point. Not he was a first-round pick when we got him. Obviously, we got him in the 3rd. The idea that we needed him to play such a large role only once again plays out another theme in this whole season, where we have asked people to do beyond their capability of what's really reasonable for either what we're paying them or what. Byron Bell is not a bad football player. A lot of these guys aren't bad football players, but to ask them to be starters at really high-level positions and carry so much of the weight, and for instance, with Trey Turner early in his rookie season, then you're asking the same out of Ben Wickery. We blame that we're doing so poorly on him because he's been injured. It's just on and on, this story of guys that are asked to do too much. How is this worse than anybody could have conceived with that step back notion? And how bad is the plan? And I'll turn that to you over first, Joe.
Well, I think we've talked about this before, and I still can't wrap my mind around the fact that one of our talent evaluators would go to management, would go to the coaching staff and say, I think Byron Bell is good enough to play left tackle in the NFL. Or, I think Cason is good enough to play cornerback in the NFL. And keep their jobs and get paid for it. I think the guys who went to the coaches in front office and said this should turn in their salaries, because it was terrible.
That would be Dave Gettleman.
It was terrible, right? And I know, look, I look back at this and I see this as being a throwaway year. If you look back at the beginning of the season, we had such high hopes, and we were expecting, this group of receivers is better than, the ones we had the year before. And these cornerbacks are good, and they'll be able to step in and play at least as well. The front 7 is going to be the difference, not the secondary anyway. And then we lose Kraken, and everything falls to pieces. And if he came in with a plan, his plan couldn't have fallen apart any worse, I don't think. Him being Dave Gettleman. I don't think his plan could have fallen apart any worse.
Okay, Jason, Joe says that Dave Gettleman came in with a plan and that it couldn't have fallen apart any worse. My contention, again, is that the plan was too built upon guys that are unproven to play pivotal roles in this defense, and just on the team in general. Asked a lot of rookies to come in and do a lot of important things. How do you feel about this plan? Was this too big of a step back?
Well, I think we need to step back and look at last year and realize what it was. Basically, Dave Gettleman, he batted 1,000 is what he did. He had no money, and he cobbled together a team, a defense that was epic. Really, probably it would have been the number 1 defense on virtually any other year. Probably. Seattle was just unbelievable. But I think what really hurt us was, this secondary was never meant to be, pull the front of the defense, because really where it all fell apart was when, Ray Rice was in the elevator with Janice Rice. Really, that's what really everything fell apart, because this team is designed, and Dave Gettleman has that philosophy of, you get a bunch of pass rushers and you don't give the quarterback time to survey the field. Those cornerbacks don't have to hold for very long.
Right.
And I think Joey is absolutely right. It really is a confluence of factors in sort of everything kind of going wrong. And I'll be honest with you, I give Sean McDermott a lot of credit, because his best pass rushers have been hurt or injured most of the year or gone. And he sort of managed to piece together a defense that's really good enough to win with if you have a competent offense. So to me, the unsung story here is Sean McDermott. I mean, he's doing a great job with what he has, in my opinion. They didn't start off the season with this plan, but he sort of adjusted on the fly. And I wish Mike Shula would do a little more of that, to be honest with you.
All right, you're listening to the C3 podcast. You can find us every Tuesday night on CarolinaCatChronicles.com. You can download it on iTunes or Stitcher, and be sure to join in the Panther conversation, or whatever we call this dismal, bleak discussion we've had over and over and over, by tweeting us with the hashtag C3. I'd like to thank everybody that is tuned in right now, and we really appreciate it. We've been doing a lot lately and got a lot of fan response, so I'm happy about that. Moving on with this, I want to talk about with a specific guy. I guess if there was really, to me, one thing that was important, or I think that I saw good out of this game, was Jonathan Stewart. In many ways, really showed us why Jonathan Stewart is still on the roster, other than you can't cut him because he costs so much. But I want to play you a clip from our good friend Rondé Barber talking about Stewart in this game.
Jonathan Stewart's been doing this all day, bouncing off tacklers. Love the way he runs. His pad level is always low. Need to get him more involved in their offense. So I don't know if they'll have the ability to do that down.
So that's Rondé Barber saying he loves the way he runs. I have to beg to differ with Rondé Barber, because if I remember correctly, Jonathan Stewart mashed Rondé Barber in the face one game at the end of the season after we ran 220 yards or some mess between him and D'Angelo Williams, and he just beat Rondé Barber. It was so embarrassing. So my observation is Jonathan Stewart really was a bright spot for the Carolina Panthers. We had one of the more effective running games of the season, and it did not require Cam being the main motor of that. But right when there's something good, there is something bad. And again, too little, too late. Why is this team not moving more in the direction of Jonathan Stewart? Are they trying to protect him? Jason, how do you feel about that?
I think I'm probably on an island here. First of all, I love the balance that Jonathan Stewart plays with. I love the effort that he plays with, and I think that's what you saw. I mean, he has a lot of heart and passion for the game, and I think that kind of just bled out onto the field. The part that I think I'm probably going to be alone here on is, I mean, to me, this season I haven't been all that impressed with Jonathan Stewart, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I mean, was it just me? I mean, to me, he looked old and slow. He looked old before his years to me. Now, again, he got some great yards, some nice tough yards, and he was hitting the hole harder than he had in previous weeks. But to me, I just felt like, man, this isn't the same guy, 3 or 4 years ago who had that burst. I mean, he looked almost like, his speed just reminded me of Obadiah or somebody like that, except with better balance and power and effort. But it didn't look like the same double trouble to me. I mean, they're 30-year-old guys.
D'Angelo Williams stinks at this. I mean, D'Angelo Williams is done, and I love I've loved D'Angelo Williams. I stuck up for him so long, but Jonathan Stewart played far better than him, and he's played far better than him all season. And the only thing, and this has been, and the only thing is Jonathan Stewart has not been healthy for the past. But he really, if you go back and look at it, man, he got us yards on the ground in that game. And I feel like D'Angelo is not. And in the past, D'Angelo Williams would always break a 70-yard touchdown run when everybody was starting to doubt on him being effective. And we haven't seen him come close to breaking a 5-yard run, let alone a 70-yard run. Joe, how do you feel? Is Jason on the island, or are you on the island with him?
Well, I am circling the island.
Circling it on a John boat.
I'm not sure he wants to step foot yet.
On a Joe boat.
The reason I say that is because I think up to this game, I would have agreed with you, Jason, in the fact that Stewart just didn't look like his normal self. I think, I don't know if it's because he was not scared, but he was hesitant because of the knee injury or the ankle or whatever, was bothering him. And this game he came out and said, you know what, I just got to go for it. But 12 carries, 85 yards, you're doing something.
7-yard average, I just pulled it up.
Something right. And yes, some of it was the offensive line, but his second and third efforts were impressive. Right. They did remind me of the old Jonathan Stewart. In this game, this is an isolated game. Okay.
But let me break in real quick. To me, I don't question his effort, and that's definitely what you saw this week. And he was healthy enough to give you that effort. And like I said, the balance and the power. That was all there, but to me, that breakaway speed, I forget which quarter it was in, but he had one run in particular where he was kind of broke out in the open. I'm thinking, man, and I kind of finished, and I was like, man, the old Jonathan Stewart, man, he probably would have scored on that one. But I just feel like he's not healthy enough, and I wonder if he's ever going to be healthy enough to be the same Jonathan Stewart that we saw 4 or 5 years ago. But I definitely agree with you. This was his best game by far. Like you said, the effort and the yards after contact, that was all there. But, he's not that, elite Adrian Peterson type back anymore. I think.
Oh, certainly not. Certainly not. How about this? Is that if you had to make a decision and you could save $1 million towards the cap by cutting either Jonathan Stewart or D'Angelo Williams, who would you cut right now?
I would cut all three. I cut all three of our running backs, to be honest with you. Can I say all three?
Tolbert, too?
$3 million bonus. Boom. Got it.
I mean, really, when you look,
Bringing back Darren Williams. Darren Reeves.
No. I mean, I'd rather have Obadiah than our guys that we have now. At least he's consistent. He hits that hole quickly enough. And that's, to me, the biggest problem. You see these backs dancing in the backfield too long. And we covered that, I believe it was last week in our show, where, we just I don't know if it's they're hurt or what's going on, but they're just not hitting the holes quickly enough, and our offensive line isn't good enough to keep those holes open for more than a second or two.
Right, that's what I was going to ask you is it the offensive line? Is it that the hole is closing that fast, that they're not getting to it? And one back I'm going to bring up because I think the point you're trying to make is shown in his running style is Le'Veon Bell.
Right.
When he one cut and he's in the hole. You know what I mean? He sees it and he goes.
Well, Le'Veon Bell has an advantage that none of our running backs have, and that's that he has an excellent offensive line. And if you'll notice, he'll sit back there and be patient, until he sees a hole, as you say, Joey, and then all of a sudden, bam, he's off to the races.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, our backs don't have that luxury, so you better pick a hole and hit that hole hard.
Nor do they have the luxury of being good. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I like what I see from Tolbert. He's been hurt all season, so I understand his role is a limited one. But when we do get in that goal line, I mean, that's been a big problem for us this season. When we get into that red zone, we can't punch it in. Tolbert is that ramming running back that moves the pile, that you're not going to bring him down one-on-one. He's going to run you over. I don't care if you're a linebacker, safety, whatever. He's going to run you over.
I think this would have been Tolbert's last year, even if he was healthy, as an effective back.
One of the things we called for was LeGarrette Blount. I mean, he was on the street. And, you talk about a smash mouth bruiser. Part of the problem with our running games, as you
He
said,
was smoking blunts on the street. Didn't he get caught with weed, or was that
I don't know.
with
He smoked some
Le'Veon
people
Bell?
last week.
Yeah.
He got 2 touchdowns.
He did. He had a good game last week.
He did, and to me, he would give your running attack an identity, which is what we don't have. And I think it's just because our running backs are older. They've had their fair share of injuries, and we don't have an identity there. So at least you would have that with a guy like Blunt. I would rather have him than any back in our stable currently, honestly.
All right. I was listening to Primetime, Chris Kroger, WFNZ 610 The Fan, by the way. I listen to them like an embarrassing amount of time on my phone and on the internet. But Clinton Portis and Masim Muhammad are on the 7 o'clock show. And Clinton Portis suggests that the Carolina Panthers go and get Adrian Peterson next year. This, I thought at first when it came out, I was like, man, that's kind of crazy. But the more I think about it, I like this idea. How much is this? Could we work something like that out? Joe, what do you think? Adrian Peterson to the Carolina Panthers, would you be happy?
I would be happy, but I just don't see it happening because of our salary situation. He's going to command, I think, a fair bit of money on the open market. And
it's not going to be a long deal because of his age.
It won't be long term, but it'll be a good bit of money. I just think he's going to be priced out of our range. But I love the idea. I'd love to see him in the backfield.
What do you think about that, Jason? Is this a pipe dream, or could you spend the how crazy, how ludicrous is it to hear it?
Well, I think there are too many bad teams with no running attack with money burning a hole in their pockets. So you look at the Oakland Raiders, man. Goodness gracious, what they get beat 52-0 last week? I mean, they would love to have any running back, and I just don't think it's in the cards for us. We have too much going on internally, as you said. There are lots of holes we need to fill, and first of all, a pass rushing defensive end, wherever that's going to come from. So to me, it's just not. It's a great thing to think about and think, wow, Cam Newton, Adrian Peterson in the same backfield. That's crazy, but I just don't see how we could pull that off.
It would be committing too much money to one position when we need help all over the field.
We had no problem doing it for Jonathan. All these other guys, it really wouldn't be that much more of a difference, especially with Greg Hardy's salary just consuming so much of the payroll at $13 million.
When they signed these deals, we weren't in the situation. But now that they're 4 and 5 years into their deals, look at the situation it's got us in, and that's what I think Gettleman is trying to get out of and avoid. The
only thing I like about it is that Adrian Peterson has played on a team that is no good, and it's very clear. It's very clear, though, that he could be such a difference maker on our offense because there are some really, I think, proven parts in Cam Newton. The best quarterback that he would have played with, even beyond Brett Favre in his year in Minnesota. And then you got Benjamin, and then maybe you could add something in the draft. I think that all of a sudden you put that into there, you add a left tackle or something in the draft, and man, he doesn't even need an offensive line. He can just run without it. He's the only guy that can. I don't know if he would go to somewhere like Oakland. I do think it's a little crazy and zany, but man, I was like, gosh, that would be awesome. He is also very old.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. And there are, I think you even got to look at the Cowboys. Peterson is a Texas guy, Jerry
But
Jones.
they got DeMarco Murray.
I know, it doesn't matter. He would bring Peterson in, and they would split carries just like D'Angelo Williams and Stewart. You got to remember that. They've even had conversations about, I say they, Jerry Jones and Adrian Peterson. He said, we're going to get you into Dallas one day. So this could be an opportunity. But, yes, there are just too many teams that have much more money than us and that would throw a ton of dough at Peterson to come to their organization.
Okay, well, let's go back.
No.
Speaking of the offense and all of this, Ron Rivera was asked this in the press conference this past Monday about Cam Newton.
Because you say it's difficult to judge, do you guys still feel like he's the quarterback of the future here?
I believe so. I believe he's our quarterback.
Now, if I'm Cam Newton, I've taken a lot of shit for Ron Rivera. I have played the mega part this season. I was on great behavior last season. I think he's really done better than anybody could have asked him to do this season in the way he's handled the media. Does Ron Rivera get negative cool points for this, for not being more emphatic? Was I the only person that hears that and go, I think so? Like, it was just, and he wasn't tired of answering questions. He's been tired of answering questions for 13 weeks.
Right.
So, Joey, if you're in that locker room, if you're Cam Newton and you hear this and you've been criticized for the way you handle things, do you like Ron Rivera after this?
No, because that to me was not a ringing endorsement. That was, yeah, he's here. I think he's going to be our guy. There's no confidence in that. There's no passion behind it. If that's your quarterback, that's your quarterback. I mean, we saw Terrell Owens have the passion for his quarterback. That's my quarterback. You know what I mean? That's the type of endorsement I would have wanted to see from Ron Rivera, because for one, he needs to show that, because I think he's in danger of losing his job. But yes, if I was Cam Newton, I would be discouraged by the endorsement from Ron Rivera. Yeah.
Jason, do you think he's the quarterback of the future? Who's going to be in Carolina longer, him or Ron Rivera?
Ask me at the end of the season, but
well, it ended like 3 weeks ago.
Right.
So let you know.
I mean, I guess I'll go back, and if you look at the general tenor of that conversation, or that press conference, Ron was frustrated the whole way through, and that's just a frustrated answer to me. And if anybody gets frustrated as far as just the general feeling and wanting things to go better, it's Cam, because, you know, obviously he wants to win a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not thrilled, like I said, with the way he answered that, but I understand the emotion and sentiment behind it. As far as Cam Newton being the, who's going to last longer, if Cam Newton isn't here, his entire career, I don't know what I'll do. I mean, I would not understand it. I would be angry beyond belief if we let Cam Newton walk out the door. I would be livid, because, I mean, Ron said it during the press conference, you can't evaluate anything when the offensive line is bad.
Right.
Now, when the offensive line was good, he was balling out at the beginning of the season. Are you going to tell me all of a sudden he forgot how to play? Did he all of a sudden, did he get a brain transplant? Does he all of a sudden just suck?
No, but his confidence hit the floor.
Well, sure. I mean, yeah, I mean, he's frustrated. And to me, I'll be frustrated too when I look at the way that these games are getting called. I mean, you look at the stuff that goes on week after week. The number one thing we talk about every week and we joke about is this slant route. Now, every week we try to run the slant route, and every week is something bad's going on with it. Interception, pick six, etc. And that's because you see the cornerbacks, and they have a certain mentality. I mean, he's like, oh, I can't wait to jump this slant route. I know it's coming.
That's so true. It's so true. Like, they're sitting there like a hungry dog looking at a snake.
Run a slant corner off of that. If he has that body posture, run a slant corner. Run a slant
like
ghost.
A double move, right?
Yes, I mean, the game is chess, man. It's not checkers. I mean, I don't even feel like he's even.
Sure.
I don't understand. It's almost like it's a paint by numbers offense, and I've said this a number of times. He just sort of, he just kind of goes from place to place, and some weeks he can't even stay inside the lines. And I hate to be negative about this, and hate to be negative.
Why? It's time to be negative. thing.
No, but at some
And
point,
the only thing that is that the one thing we need to be negative about is the people that really believe that Cam is the problem on this team.
I
Now,
can't believe the number of people who say sit Cam down and bring in Derek Carr. Derek Anderson.
Derek Carr, yeah, might as well bring him in too. They have to both play at the same time, and they're still not equal to Cam. The thing about this is that the only way you bring Derek Anderson in is to protect Cam and just say, you know what, Cam, just get healthy. We'll see you next season.
Right.
We're calling it off. But the idea that Cam Newton makes your team worse is the dumbest thing I have ever heard. Now, if Aaron Rodgers was on our team and Cam Newton was out there and playing like this, okay, then let's have this conversation. But who in the world, in the entire NFL, is either A, available, or B, coming up that is better than Cam Newton right now and can be better than him tomorrow? Not one person. It's the dumbest, stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life is that you are looking at the wrong person. And, Jason, you said it, is that slant route, dude, has had nothing but problems. In fact, that I'm starting to wonder, Cam hasn't thrown every ball perfectly, obviously. He has not been on good for the last maybe 5 weeks. But the problem is that when he starts to get a little mojo going, or when he does do something right, somebody else does something monumentally wrong. Quit on a route, not come back hard enough on a route, something very right. So here, speaking of play calling, Joe, here this is.
Talk to you about the red zone woes there, and looking back, you missed something here or there, but did you want to see anything different with the play calls?
No. Again, there are certain things that happen in the game, certain things that happen within the throws of the game, and when you break it down, you look at it and you see something, you go, wow, if we make the block here, this is instead of -1 or 2, it's 4 or 5. Run the route over here, and we see the route over there, and we catch it. Hey, it's a big completion. These are a lot of the plays we've run last year that we had success with in the red zone as well. So unfortunately for right now, it's about execution and getting those things done.
It's stuff like this, guys, that makes me join the Fire Ron Rivera bandwagon. And I have never been a guy that thinks I stuck up for Rivera last season. Early on, I wrote this big piece, and it even got me tickets to a game. Like, I won this tickets for this article. And it was Ron Coolio Rivera got to keep us in it and stay cool. But the problem here, what are you talking about, Ron? The next job I have for you is to watch NFL films. And that's all you do, because obviously you're a great film watcher, and you can tell us everything that goes wrong on a play, but you cannot call a play that will work in the first place. And that answer, guys, is so disconcerting to me, so unsettling, because I can say what if, but it's not happening. So, Joey, Jason, you guys can fight over this. Who is more at fault over this play call? Is this play calling? Is this simple execution that's not happening? At the end of the day, does the head coach have to be responsible for this?
Go ahead, Jason. You start.
Oh, well, obviously he's the one that takes responsibility. He's out front. But I will, in Ron's defense, I will say he kind of gave the only answer that he could in front of the press. He's not going to go out there and question his offensive coordinator. He's not going to go out and name names. That's not how you conduct a team, in my opinion. Saying it's execution, et cetera, that's really just coaches speak to me, and it's just kind of a way to try to get to the next question without doing any damage. So, the slant route, we talked about that. To me, that's just a symptom of the problem. The big problem is when you see something happen on the field, I don't get the sense that there is a reaction and flow to that, like what you saw with Rob Chudzinski. He had his faults too, but he's one of these guys that had an innate sense to how to call plays. So when the defense was doing one thing, he would play off of that. I don't get that sense with Mike Shula personally.
Right.
Joey, we just got a tweet from one of our favorite friends, Susan, the not so lazy Susans, by the way, who are blowing it up in the C3 Fantasy Football League, destroying opponents. She said this: so Rivera completely blames the players. He assumes no responsibilities for the team's failures. So frustrating. Hashtag C3. So, the thing about this is that, yes, is this coaches speak? Yes. Is this saying that, well, we missed the block? But every play, he's saying was a lack of execution. We'll have to go to the tape. Lack of execution. We'll have to look at the tape. We'll correct this. None of it has been corrected. You've looked at tons of tape. You should have burned it all. And the point being is this: why don't you come out and give another coach speak answer and say, well, obviously, I'm not happy with anything that's going on, including the play calling. And that is not a referendum on my offensive coordinator, but this ain't working. That would be my answer. Joey, take it away.
I liked the play calling in this game because it was opened up a bit. I say opened up. They tried a reverse. They did a double reverse. So I like that part of it. But both of those plays, I think one got us maybe a yard or two. The other one was a loss because of execution. Because our offensive line can't hold blocks long enough to be able to pull off a reverse or a double reverse. Shula's had play calling issues since he's taken over. This isn't the first time we've had to call him out. But
the plays worked last year, Joey. These were plays that worked last year. Didn't you hear Ron Rivera say that?
We had a decent offensive line.
And we had the 27th ranked offense in the league. You mean when it worked in that one?
And we had a better receiving core. There were, worked is all it's worked. It worked because of how good our defense was. We could have the 27th ranked offense last year because we had the second ranked defense.
But wouldn't it have been awesome to have like the 22nd ranked offense?
Yeah, or what about the 16th? Imagine if we had the 16th ranked offense. Can
I remind you that Chudzinski and people that so disliked him, i.e. D'Angelo Williams, is that he had 2 top 10 offenses with garbage ass players too.
Mm-hmm. I wish they'd have brought him back, to tell you the truth, in hindsight. But Shula, everywhere Shula's gone, I hate to say he's been a failure, but he's just not had much success. I guess that's putting it more nicely. And that's continued here. And if Rivera does happen to stay for whatever reason, I don't think there's any doubt that Shula has to go. We have to bring someone in that. It's better to. He doesn't make adjustments well. He really doesn't.
He's in over his head.
That's
just what it is. It would be like if I took over a high school football team and tried to start calling plays. Like, I would be like, let's run, let's throw the ball. Now, this time, that didn't work. Let's throw the ball. You know what I mean? Is that overall, it's not, I don't know if there is an understanding of the players in the game well, and maybe not the game, but the idea that, that this works on paper. This works with the right personnel. But the idea of being a good coach is putting your players in a place to succeed.
Right.
And you have to realize that Byron Bell is Byron Bell, that you're playing with rookies, you're playing with Nate Chandler, you're playing with these guys, you're playing with older back. You have to put these guys in areas that that kind of diminish or mask some of their weaknesses. And once again, this goes back to us maybe asking too much of somebody like Kelvin Benjamin in his first year. And is the love wearing off a little? I've seen some criticism of the golden boy, Kelvin Benjamin. Things must be bad. Jason, do you feel that any of this criticism is merited?
Well, I think Kelvin Benjamin has been everything you would hoped he could be this season. I mean, you expected him to have drops coming in. You expected him to have lapses. Number one, that's kind of his game. Number two, he's a rookie. To me, he reminds me quite a bit of Terrell Owens in that respect, and you saw a lot of that with Owens his first couple of years in the league. He continued to drop balls, but he also made huge plays, and that's really what counts in my opinion. And just going back real quick, I think you made an excellent point when you said, you talked about the different personnel we had, and to me, a statement like, well, we ran these plays last year and they worked. Well, yeah, but that was last year. I mean, you do have a different set of personnel, and you have a different set of strengths. I mean, we're sitting here talking about, oh, we have all these terrible players. We have the talent, I think, to be eons better than what we are. And if we would just call things a little differently, call these plays like you're talking about, the reverse at a little different time, I think we'd have a lot more success. I mean, there's so many little things that we could be doing that we're not doing, in my opinion. Every week that it all adds up in my opinion, and to say that, well, it worked last year, that to me, that's a big part of the problem when you say something like that, because it's a different game every year. Ask any head coach. You can't just rest on your laurels and say, well, we'll just do the same thing. Well, guess what? There's other guys on the other side of the ball watching all your tape from last year, and they have all the offseason prepare, and they're going to be ready for it, every bit of it.
The idea that okay, so back to the name of the show, because then we got our last two segments we got to jump into as well, and that is the title of the show is Cason Closed, and Antoine Cason, a guy that was I think he was a first-round draft pick,
27th or something like that.
Okay, and goes into San Diego, knows Rivera from there. Went to the Cardinals, who had a remarkably good secondary, big time. I mean, obviously they got Patrick Peterson. I believe they got another higher draft pick or another big name. So it's kind of understandable that he wouldn't get a lot of playing time. He's the one that returned a touchdown against Cam on a fumble last year. And Antoine Cason was cut today. Now, in Ron Rivera's press conferences this week, he said, I'm not quitting on this. We still have 4 games. We're going to let the chips fall as they may. Is the Antoine Cason cut symbolic that the Carolina Panthers are moving on to next year? And this is why I believe it is that the secondary stinks. It hasn't been good. Josh Norman, by the way, is good, even though we can't really just crown him just yet. But I think what it's showing us is that if our secondary is thin and not good, you don't have to necessarily cut the guy. You could bench him, like you could bench Deku and bring guys in. But I think when they brought in Carrington Bynum, and I think this is talent evaluation. Joey, is that what the rest of this season is just evaluating for next year?
I sure hope so, and I think it should be. I think at this point, you have to see what you're going to keep from this roster. You have to see what the rookies have. You have to give them a chance, because really they're going to get their best experience at game speed. It's one thing to do it in practice and training camp and all that, but when you get in the game, that's when you're in the thick of it. That's when things are going 100 miles an hour. You got to read your keys. You got to look for this and look for that. So I think we should be transitioning these last 4 games into that phase of evaluation. That seems to me to be the right move for the future.
Jason, are we in evaluation mode? Do you really seriously think there is anything other than that at this point?
I'll give you the Ron Rivera answer. We're evaluating all the time. I'm getting evaluated. The
And
players
myself.
getting
I think I got that clip. I think I got that clip.
But
when you said it's unfair to judge, you meant judge him this year or the team?
So, all right, I'm not going to play it, but I'm just one of the things is you're right, is that, okay, we'll keep going. Ron Rivera, we're evaluating everybody.
No, but to go back and just bounce off of Susan's comment about blaming the players. I mean, there was a lot of that, but then he also talked about the coaching staff as well. But back to your question, to me, this is about accountability, and it's both about accountability and it's about looking at what else you have. Because if someone's not doing their job on the team, I mean, everyone knows it, and that caused issues for our defense earlier in the year where certain people weren't necessarily where they're supposed to be. They weren't doing their jobs. That caused other players to try and do two jobs, and we all know what happens when you try to do that. So, hats off to Sean McDermott. I mean, how many people has he given that axe this year that he felt like they just weren't playing the way he wanted to play? So, again, I'm going to give Sean McDermott kudos. He's done a good job with really a patchwork defense. So, it does feel like Rivera's kind of turned the page a little bit on this year. He's going to give it his best shot to try and close out strong, but I mean, it just doesn't feel like a team that's ready to surge into the playoffs after last week's bye. That was extremely disappointing to me.
Man, I hate to say that. Well, I don't hate to say any of this. I'm going to go ahead and say this with ultimate confidence, is that the idea that the Carolina Panthers surging to do anything is like so ridiculous. We've had the same exact conversation, all right? And now this goes to my boy Straight Facts, who is on his show, which you can check out on the C3 TV network. I was on his show last night, and, about 6 weeks ago, he was giving me shit about not picking the Panthers and like this and that, and I was kind of down on them. But look at what has happened. There is no surge. That idea that the chips have fallen, Ron Rivera, and they have fallen off the table or into somebody else's poker pot or whatever it may be, because this team is done this year. And I don't think that we should be ashamed to say that. What we should be really ashamed of saying is that we think that they couldn't be done. That winning 4 games and going 7-9 all of a sudden would make things better or whatever it would be. We can't win. This goes back to, I feel like I have to give one Wayne's World quote a week in my life. And this goes to when Wayne is getting his ex-girlfriend is giving him a birthday gift, and this goes to you, Joey, since it's your birthday tomorrow. And she goes, "I got you a gift, Wayne," and he opens it up, and he goes, "What is it?" And she goes, "It's a gun rack." And he goes, "A gun rack? I don't even own a gun, let alone enough guns to necessitate an entire rack. We can't even get a win, let alone enough wins to necessitate an entire surge." So, sorry, that was my rant for tonight, but I think it's time of this part of the show to play a little bit of our, one of our, newer segments, should we say, but with the same questions each week. Fact or fiction? That's right. It is the Fact or Fiction segment of the C3 podcast, and I'm going to ask everybody, fact or fiction, Ron Rivera, once again, I think this might be the 3rd week running in the conversation. Will he be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers next year? Jason, fact or fiction?
Oh, man. I really think, and I'm not trying to cop out here, but I really think.
Well, obviously.
What's that?
I said, well, obviously. If you say I'm not going to cop out, be prepared to be copping out.
If it's me, if I'm Dave Gettleman, I don't think Ron Rivera is my guy. I mean, when I look at all the coaching talent that's out there, I like Ron Rivera. I think he's an awesome defensive coordinator. But a head coach, I'm not convinced. I'm really not. I mean, I think we saw the best of Ron last year, and it was great. Don't get me wrong, but the chips fell just perfectly, and I'm not convinced he's our guy. There's been too much down and not enough up. I suppose in fairness to him, this year he hasn't had a lot to work with as far as talent is concerned. So that would be my only caveat there. I would rather see us bring in someone like, say, I don't know, like a David Cutcliffe, someone like someone who's it's like a Jim Kelly type guy, a Chip Kelly type guy, excuse me. But David Cutcliffe's been doing that Chip Kelly stuff for a long time, and I don't see it with him. I'm sorry. I like him. He's a great guy, but man, I hate to say that too. It hurts me to say that.
Joey, Jason says fact or fiction. I don't even know what the question was. Ron Rivera, no, fiction. It was fiction because I asked he will be, right? Maybe. Who cares? Fact or fiction, Joey? Ron Rivera, quarterback of the Carolina Panthers next season.
Ron Rivera?
Or quarterback, not quarterback. I'm on my third year, fellas. I'm on my third year. It is head coach. Fact or fiction?
That would be fiction. Ron Rivera will not be back next year. The guy had 8 or 9 interviews for head coaching positions before getting the one in Carolina. There's a reason he didn't get it prior to Carolina. Whoever was interviewing him saw something or heard something or felt something that he was just missing that it factor that head coaches have. And Ron Rivera was a decent player who was a smart player more than a physical player, and that just hasn't transitioned into his coaching. I think I like his demeanor. He doesn't get too excited one way or the other. Sometimes you want to see a little passion, but I like his coolness. But he's just not the man for this team, for this Carolina Panthers team. And moving forward, I don't think he's a man. Now, I am not a fan of bringing in a college coach either. Maybe there's a guy who could come in and do it, but I would prefer to bring in someone with NFL head coaching experience myself.
Who's that guy, Joey?
In a perfect world, I'd love Bill Cowher to come to Carolina. I don't think that's going to happen. But
we've been saying that for like 7 years.
Right. If I could have my choice, that's who I would want to come in. I like his coaching style, and I think his coaching style would fit what the Carolina Panthers organization has been for most of its existence: run the ball, play defense. But that's
all right. I'm gonna say Ron Rivera against my better judgment. I'm gonna say fact. He will be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. When I say against my better judgment, I do not think he should be the coach of the Carolina Panthers. And this is because this is a tough thing. Is that I'm really with Jason on this. Is that I like him, and I don't even necessarily dislike him as a head coach, or dislike him as a coach entirely, or do I think this is his fault? Do I think that he deserves to have his head roll? But my thing is, what is one more year going to do?
Right.
Really?
It would be a lame duck year, too.
I mean, are we going to see him just become a mastermind coach that we kind of are hoping for, or maybe what it takes to win in this league at this point? I think we at this point we know what we know Ron Rivera, right? We know what he can do. He's had 3 losing seasons. He can play the defense. It's going to take everything that's going to go perfect. And I just feel like this. I feel like what we have with Cam Newton is we have that car you sent to me, Joey. What was the car that you got for your birthday?
Oh, that was it was the 2015 Corvette Stingray.
And there was a Toyota Sienna minivan behind it. I told Joey that must have been the car he got for his birthday. It would be like putting regular gas in that car. That's what I feel like Ron Rivera is when you've got somebody like Cam Newton. Now, why do I say fact? Because I don't know if Dave Gettleman can take another year of, if he fires Ron Rivera, that's got to make him look really bad. Like, I hung this dude out to dry and didn't give him squat, and then I fired him. He would have to bring in a big-time name. You cannot bring in a regular dude, another Ron Rivera type, middle-of-the-road, unproven guy to do it. It would take a Bill Cowher. It would take a Jim Harbaugh. It would take a Gus Malzahn type name, I think, to survive that PR nightmare. Because the Steve Smith thing we know has proven to be a bad thing. He hasn't done well this year with handling the press. Okay, fact or fiction, Cam Newton will be a successful quarterback in the NFL. Joe, you start us.
I think that's fact. I think he has the talent, he has the tools, he needs some help. And we saw what he was capable of last year when he had just a little bit of help. I think with a good offensive line and another good receiver, doesn't have to be great, but even a Justin Hardy type, Sammy Coates type, bringing them in will make a huge difference. And Cam won't have to feel like everything is on his shoulders, and he'll be able to feel confident behind that line, take his time, step into his throws, use proper mechanics. So yes, I do believe he will be a good quarterback, provided we can get some help around him.
Jason, fact or fiction?
Absolute
Is it already a fact?
Hey, it's been a fact, okay? I mean, this guy, whenever things are right around him, he's right. Every single time, he's been in a good situation as far as the people playing around him, and you can tell when he's feeling good about what's going on around him and when he's comfortable. He balls out every time. Every time things are right, Cam Newton's right there. Does he have his flaws? Yes. But is he a baller? Yes. And people talking about getting rid of Cam and hitting the reset button.
That's just stupid.
It's just so dumb.
Hit the F5 button, dog, because you're not seeing it right, in my opinion.
Right.
Because a player like Cam Newton, he does not come along every year. So we're not used to having a franchise quarterback. And I'll remind people, the first 6 weeks of this year, people were talking about Tom Brady's washed up. Do they need to, I mean, come on. I mean, Tom Brady was doing the same exact stuff that Cam Newton is doing right now. And Cam Newton at the beginning of the season was doing the exact same stuff that Tom Brady's doing right now. So when things are good around him, Cam's good. Cam's good. I have no problem at all with Cam being my starting quarterback.
All right, I'm going to turn just two more fact or fiction questions and moving on to the last bit of the show. Josh Norman is entering the last year of his deal, which isn't big. 4 year. We signed him, I guess, since we drafted him, to a 4-year deal, $2.3 million, with only $200,000 being the guaranteed money. So he has been around. He's going to make about $700,000 next year. Last year, will Josh Norman, is he the answer, and will he be a long-term feature in the Carolina defense? Jason, go.
To me, that's a tough question. I think he's played well enough where he's shown that he deserves to be in this league and that he can play within the system that Sean McDermott has drawn up for him. So in that respect, yes, you're going to see him in the league for a long time. Now this kind of dovetails with the factor. Your first question you asked, is Ron Rivera going to be around? Well, if Ron Rivera is not around, the reset button on the defense, you just pressed it. So there's no telling what a new DC would do in here. It's a little concerning that we're still seeing some of these sort of lack of maturity issues with Josh, although it's been a lot better this year. But I'll just write off this week to two guys who didn't really like each other, kind of getting after it. So I like Josh. He's played so much better this year. He's grown up a lot, and I hope he is, because he has a lot of ability, and if he doesn't let his ego get in the way of a contract, he could be here for a while.
Joey, fact or fiction, long-term feature, Josh Norman.
I hope it's fact. We have seen him go from the doghouse to being the best cornerback on the team, I think. He has the tools, and more importantly, he has the confidence now. The cornerback is a position where you've got to have that confidence. That's where his ego sometimes gets the better of him, and he does lash out and does immature things. And like Jason said, there has been a marked improvement in that this season. But yes, I sure hope so, because he has all the tools. He's got decent size, and he's got the confidence. He's got the bravado, the machismo to play the position.
All right, fact or fiction, Joey, will the Carolina Panthers win another game this season?
I think it is fiction to think that Carolina is going to win another game this season. The teams we have to play, we have to play two division opponents on the road. So that right there hurts us. We have to play the Browns, who have been playing well.
And you're going to have old Johnny coming to town, probably.
Right. In all likelihood. So I don't think it's in the cards for us to win another game this season. I think we're going to get a good draft spot, and we'll see where we end up next year.
Yeah, let me see if I got something. Let me see if this works.
So if we lose out, how many will that be in a row? 11?
That is something I wanted to bring up tonight. In 3 days from now, in just 3 days, maybe 2 days, we will be having our 2-month anniversary of our last win versus, I think it was October 5th was our last win against the Chicago Bears at home, I believe. And
it was on the road. It was home. Yeah, you're right.
In a game where we played poorly in the first half and came back, and so it wasn't like anything to even be that excited about. Right. So just remember that 2 months. The last time you saw the Carolina Panthers, you started out 2-0, one of those beating the Detroit Lions. Since we've seen a win, we've just been beat down so bad at this point. Each game, I don't think we've been as close as a lot of people want to make us out to be. Maybe there was a couple of games in there that we were, but there was a lot of games in there that we just got kicked in the face. Okay. Next week we're going to play, I believe, the New Orleans Saints. In New Orleans. Is that right? I haven't even looked at the schedule. Right. Is there any way we can win this, guys? And let's just close it. And we got one more segment after this, and we'll make it a quick one. But is there really anything to talk about in the game going forward against the New Orleans Saints? Is there any chance, Jason, of the Carolina Panthers going to New Orleans and getting a win? Well, did I even ask you fact or fiction about the win next season? I think I skipped you.
That's okay. I'll just go ahead and say I'll answer real quick. I think it's a fact that we'll win one game. Our division is too bad, and I'll go by the old cliche: "You're never as bad as they say you are." So, we're gonna get one somewhere in there, I think. So, at least that's what I want for Christmas. I don't know about you guys, but I'm thirsty. I'm real thirsty.
I want a high draft pick for Christmas.
Are you gonna get that regardless?
I don't see a win coming. So, okay, well then, will that win be New Orleans? And that is a no.
That's. I'm not gonna say it's impossible, but that's a really tough road to hoe. When you look at the way New Orleans is playing, they're looking a lot more like the old New Orleans. Whatever was going on with Drew Brees, that seems to have dissipated somewhat. To me, if the Panthers, the chance that the Panthers have is if they can somehow manufacture some pass rush on Drew Brees, and you get him moving around and you knock him around some, then he gets frustrated and he's not nearly the same guy. That would be the one way that I think the Panthers could, keep that New Orleans offense down enough for them to get on top of them and sneak out of there. And that plus they lost 2 in the Dome, so their last 2 road games.
3, yeah, 3 in a row.
Yeah, so there's a sliver of hope, but that's
the problem is they didn't play the Carolina Panthers in there.
Any of those 3 games. And that's where
I'm going to say I'm with Joey. I'm in fiction. Carolina Panthers will not win another game this season, even against Tampa Bay, and that breaks my heart.
I think
if there is a game, that's the one.
Lovie Smith, man, you ought to be able to put together enough offense to beat him up.
Especially.
That's like saying that's what they say about Ron Rivera. That's exactly what they said in Tampa Bay. That's what they're saying when they come to Carolina.
Hey, you get 2 bad teams playing each other, man. Each one thinks they have a shot.
Okay, maybe they'll tie.
A tie? Oh, that would be the worst. I can't take another tie.
We couldn't even. We tied the bye. We didn't even get a win in the bye. We tied the bye. All right, Joey. This is how I obviously roll these days watching the Carolina Panthers. It's time for the Ice Up segment of the week, and there's been a lot of ice. There's been a lot of drinks, and there have been no liquor spilt in this house. After the Carolina Panthers, every drop is like a little drop of gold. Ice Up picks of the week. I'm going to go first since I put you guys on the spot all day, every day, since I've been asking you all the questions. I'm going to say this. My Ice Up pick of the week, fellas, goes outside of the Carolina Panthers because I'm sick of them. And I'm not going to spill any more ice or drop any more cubes over them. This is my Ice Up pick of the week goes to the New York Giants, who were up 21-0 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then they lost 25-24. This goes to you Eli Manning. You're looking like you're slow, and we know what I mean by looking like you're slow.
Not a foot.
Is buddy you and your little angry gremlin coach who have won Super Bowls that they burn me up, is that y'all need to ice up. Lost to the damn Jacksonville Jaguars, up 21 points. So this goes to you. Ice up, son. Jason, you want to jump in there or you want to pass the mic to Joe?
After a week like this week, it's, what in the military they call it a target-rich environment. I mean, it's like, who do I pick? There's so many people that are running through my mind right now. But I'm gonna pick on Mike Shula since he's been my whipping boy, and I feel kind of bad about it because, we've been really picking on him pretty bad. But I'm gonna say, Mike Shula, buddy, get the igloo cooler out. Do the Peyton Manning commercial, losing feeling in my toes. It's in the Nationwide Farm. Please, for once this season. Please, bro. Ice up, son. We need it. We need it back.
Amen to that. Amen to that. For my Ice Up Sun Pick of the Week, I'm going to the college ranks, and I'm going to Starkville, Mississippi. Even though I think it was actually in Oxford, the game was. But Mississippi State has played pretty well all season long. They were in the hunt to make the first ever college playoffs. All they had to do was beat their in-state rival, Ole Miss, which I hear.
Is that the Egg Bowl?
Yeah, the Egg Bowl. Which I hear that if you want to see the prettiest girls in the SEC, you need to go to a home Ole Miss game, is what I've heard. Anyway.
Or Athens, Georgia.
Mississippi State.
How do you guys know this? I'd like to know.
You had such an opportunity to really make a huge statement for your university, for your coach, for your team, for your quarterback who was in the Heisman, at least he was being mentioned in the Heisman, and you dropped the ball. You laid an egg in the Egg Bowl.
So, oh boy, did they lay an egg.
I say, Ice Up, Mississippi State.
Ice Up, Mississippi State. Speaking of, did you hear that UAB closed their football program?
No way.
They terminated it. They closed it. They said nobody, because they can't, really, I think I'm pretty sure today I heard on the radio that this college quit their college football program. I give them a little a pat on the back for that because I think sometimes it might be overrated for certain schools. This is the C3 podcast, CarolinaCatChronicles.com. I want to thank everybody for coming on tonight to the show. Jason, tell our listeners, because we've got a good bunch tonight, and there will be more coming throughout the week. Tell them how they can get after you.
Sure. Thanks for having me on, Joe. It's always a great time to be with you guys and Panther Nation. You can head on over to CarolinaProFootball.com, and from there you can subscribe to our podcast. It's weekly, just like the C3, and we also have a little pregame preview that we do every week to sort of give you a little primer. And on the right-hand side of the site there, all the social media, all the ways to subscribe to the show. And again, thanks again. I had a great time. Hopefully it wasn't too negative this week. I generally try to stay positive, but man, it's awful tough after the past few weeks we've had in Panther Nation. So I'm going to purge and get this out of my system, and next week I'm going to come back positive no matter what.
Wow, that's funny because, Joey, I'm pretty positive that we suck. We suck again. Joey,
enjoy the suck.
How they can find you.
You find me
and
on
happy
Twitter.
Birthday, bro. Happy birthday,
man. Absolutely.
I appreciate it. You can find me on Twitter at Joe Riolano. It's been a long year. Last year we were 12-5, and it just felt like the season flew by. Or 12-4, excuse me. It just went by so fast. It was a blur. But this year it just feels like it has dragged on and on and on. And it's made me appreciate those winning seasons because it's just, you're in such a better mood. I hate coming home from, we do a Carolina Panthers fan club here in Charleston, South Carolina, where I live, and I hate coming home because I'm so depressed. And, I have a family.
I bet you hate going to it.
Well, the people there are real cool, and we have a good time. But yeah, coming home, it's the worst because it's just loss after loss. And anyway, if you are in Charleston, please come out and join us. Every time the Panthers are on, we're there at Southside 17 at the Tango Outlets. We have a very, very good time. They take real good care of us there. They do a great job.
All right, this is the Professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn. You can check us out every Tuesday night, 10 o'clock, CarolinaCatChronicles.com. Please sub up on iTunes, on Stitcher, however you get your audio. Listen to it in the car, listen to it in the gym. I've worked, speaking of, Joey, when you say that it's so depressed, it's kind of hard and sad, is that we have really, CarolinaCatChronicles.com has done a lot since our birth just about a year ago. It's like our birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And we are not stopping. We're not slowing down. We're only growing. We've been doing I feel like we've done a great job. But, man, it's hard sometimes writing and doing podcast after podcast, going on radio show after radio show, and it being this bad. Luckily is that, well, I wish we could say we didn't have 2 losing years back to back. We just haven't had 2 winning years back to back. But we're going to flip the script, folks. We're going to flip the script. I want to ask you and be thinking and working on this for next week's show, guys. And we'll talk about this in the open mic, which I'd like everybody to come and check out the revised website. The website, guys, is like
looking good.
Man, it really is. And I'm not trying to toot the horn here too much, but we really did a massive upgrade to the website. And it is mobile friendly. It looks great. It works great. It loads fast. It's got a lot of different features. So check out C3 TV. Check out the open mic. But I want you guys to think about this over the next week. Can this be turned around in just a year? And that's what I'm a little bit worried about. So we will revisit that idea. We will visit that idea over the next week, guys. Check us out, CarolinaCatChronicles.com. See you next Tuesday.